So Zimbabwean MP Chief Fortune Charumbira has vowed to deliver purposeful and people-centered leadership that will fight Africa's challenges. And this is after he was elected the fifth president of the Pan-African Parliament yesterday. The presidency of the organization has previously been dominated by western, eastern and central regions of the continent. Charumbira's election is seen as a victory for the southern African region in particular. Let's bring in the southern region's acting vice chair, McHenry Venaani, who joins us now via our telephone line this morning. McHenry, it's lovely to have you on Newzroom Afrika. Thank you so much indeed for making time. In his acceptance speech yesterday, Fortune Charumbira mentioned something along the lines of this also being a victory for those in the Southern Regional Caucus. The background about this, of course, is the fact that the issue of rotational policy has been a great bone of contention, especially for those who've been in SADC. Now that this is the president that's been elected, do you reckon that that is behind us?
Well, the region feels vindicated because it took us nearly 12 months, over 12 months to lobby others at the PRC, the Permanent Representative Council of Ambassadors and Plenipotentiaries of State, the Executive Council of Foreign Ministers, up to the Bureau of Heads of States for us to have brought Musa Faki, His Excellency AU Chairperson here. So I think the region has been consistent in its politics, saying that we need to make sure that all institutions of the AU organ comply with the principle of rotation, whereas the other regions were denying us the right to become the leaders of this body. We have achieved that, and we have achieved that with excisions, lobbying the northern region that had the last chance, like ourselves, to become. And we had to bring big nations together, Algeria, Egypt, amongst others, Sahrawi, Mauritania, to consolidate our position. So I think we have indicated, we have set the tone, the correct tone, that this body must be a democratic body and everyone must have the chance to lead it. And we are giving assurance, as also the campaign manager that I was for the South African region, we give one assurance that Chief Fortune Charumbira would not do the same that what other presidents did, that when he gets a 10, he would want to cling onto power. After 3 years, Southern African region will give it, will yield that leadership to the Northern region so that there is acceptable rotation in organization, and we build the synergy of bringing the division issues closer and narrow the gap of those divisions, which is the language barriers of Anglophony, Francophony, Lusophony, Arabic, and all those divisions that are dividing Africa, that are very artificial, that are very colonial in their construct. So I think we are setting a new tone of bringing respectability, discipline, focus-oriented policy formulation and consultative politics towards the PAP and the organs of the African Union. Up to this moment, this body has not become a legislative body, but it is advisory and consultative. But every year the EU summits meet without any input of African parliamentarians, giving suggestions on what new model laws needs to be brought up to attack socio-economic challenges challenging the African continent.
If I can come in there, you've mentioned that it's not necessarily a legislative body yet, at least the parliament that you're a part of. Is that the ambition, though? And if that's the case, how soon can something like that happen in a context where I imagine part of the process will entail there being a harmonization of the laws?
Well, it's not an easy ride. The exigence in which many African countries have attempted to move has been very, very disappointing, because people are not yet ready, because there is a political context to it, that if you give legislative authority to the Pan-African Parliament, you would yield some sort of sovereignty of nations towards the Assembly of PAP. So many countries have not yet found the confidence to yield sovereign power to the legislative parliament. But the motive and the purpose of the Constitutive Act and the protocol of PAP was to create a body that would create model laws on behalf of the people of Africa. So it all depends on how the leadership of PAP behaves and the confidence that they bestow into the institution for many countries to start saying, okay, there is this Pan-African body that can bring ideas and legislative policy framework that can be able to guide our nations towards a particular goal. It's not going to be an easy task, and that is one of the greatest tasks that is lying ahead of the presidency of Chief Fortune Charumbira, is to create a dialogue among African nations at the AU level to say, when are we ready to start yielding legislative authority towards the Pan-African Parliament?
Sure. You spoke about, divisions within the parliament itself. Let's speak about divisions, at least apparent divisions within the SADC region. Initially there was an endorsement of just one candidate, and that's the candidate who eventually made it out and is able to clinch that position. But Malawian MP Jeremiah Chihana also threw his hat in the ring, suggesting that perhaps, there isn't necessarily a united front within SADC. Speak to us about any concerns you might have about that and what that means for this 10-year ahead.
Well, I think Chihana was, with all due respect, Chihana was a product of other regions that did not want Southern African region to emerge. So they tried to rally a bit of resources and try to identify a candidate that would be able to play the spoiler game. So he was a spoiler, and we were very alive to that, because the first person that they wanted to be a candidate was myself. They lobbied me and said, yeah, Venaani, you're more capable. I said, this thing has nothing to do.
Is this the other regions, by the way?
That's the other regions.
Right.
They are countries. The geopolitics of nations is that the other regions realized that the South would emerge, because the argument of rotation was already won at the African Union headquarters. So then they said, okay, if the southern region is going to emerge, let's divide them so that they come with two candidates and we vote for the candidate that we are seeing as a lesser threat to us, because the whole matter, as it stands, is a question of Sahrawi, because Southern Africa is very bold in unison saying, yes, we need to ventilate the matter of Sahrawi, and Sahrawi should become an independent state. So countries that are not feeling comfortable with Sahrawi put some money and throw some money and try to identify candidates. I was one of the candidates that was identified, and I was very clear that this matter is not a matter of individualism. It's a matter of the region. Even if, when I had to emerge as the campaign manager of the region, it was 10 countries that came together, converged, and said, amongst all of us, being the opposition leader, being experienced, known by heads of states and government, you are the person that should lead this thing on our behalf. So Chihana was our acting chair, and we said to him, we have fought the battle together up to Addis, to turn around and start saying he is the candidate. And Chihana, two things have emerged yesterday. He nominates himself. Who does that? That's not a division. There's no way. The rules are very clear that the caucus must nominate you. Robert Chihana nominates himself. Secondly, he writes letter on the plenary to try to stop Chief, because his handlers have told him, please go and disturb the Southern African region. The Southern African region has remained committed, consolidated. 10 countries, all of them have approved the candidature of Chief Fortune Charumbira.
If what you're saying is true, I wonder what that means for ways through which Chihana can be held accountable through the internal mechanism of this Pan-African Parliament. But that's the time we have this morning. Thank you so much for speaking to us. McHenry Venaani is the Southern African Acting Vice Chair. Thanks once again for your time.